Welcome to this week's Rider Support.
This week we're going to talk about weight loss for cycling, group ride, disasters. Please never do this. But first we're going to talk about how to set up your training zones and why you need to be spending time in each of these zones. Let's get into it, Sarah.
Zones. You said that like a 90s DJ. Okay, let's crack into it. So up until now, my training plan has basically been ride until I'm tired, then eat snacks. But I know that if I want to improve, I need to figure out the training in zones thing. I have some big challenges in 2025 and I'm hoping to do Mallorca 312. So I figure it's time to get a bit more serious. How do I even start with this? And how do I know which zones I should be in without feeling like I'm suddenly doing math homework on the bike? I want to get faster, but also not ruin my love for training and going out and just enjoying the spin.
It does kind of sound like he's figured it out where he just cycles and then eats snacks. That's like the dream.
It is the dream, isn't it? Right. He says, ride until I'm tired, then eat snacks.
We need to get that on a t-shirt.
Yeah, that is cool. It's simple but effective.
I think you do need to do a little bit of maths. I don't think you can get out of doing a little bit of maths on this to set up your zones. But once you have them set up, it's pretty easy because your Garmin just, you look down at, am I in this like bucket? Yes, I'm in that bucket. Done. There's not a lot of mental arithmetic to do. Let me talk about the traditional way to set up zones and then a recent podcast conversation I've had. I love Joe Frail. I've had him on the podcast. I think Joe Frail's for me is the easiest way to set up zones. It's the same as advocated by Hunter Allen and Andrew Cogan and a bunch of other people. You're going to go and ride a 20-minute effort, full gas if you have a power meter, 25-minute full gas if you don't have a power meter. Take your average heart rate for the last 20 minutes of the 25-minute effort or take your 20-minute power. Then you're going to multiply that by 0.95 to get 95% of it because that's an approximation of what you'd be able to do for 1 hour. And then like you can plug these if you want down below into the description, or if someone just Googles like Joe Frail training zones, you're going to take a percentage of that result for each zone. So for example, zone 1 recovery, that's like super low intensity. It's used for active recovery, easy days between hard days. That's going to be below 55% of your power figure or below 68% of your heart rate figure. Zone 2, that's primarily aerobic. That's important for building mitochondria, building a strong endurance base. It's going to be roughly 56 to 75% of your power figure or 69 to 83% of your heart rate figure. Look, I could go through all these, but it's going to sound like me reading the phone book. So each of the zones, zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, zone 5, zone 6, zone 7, each has an associated physiological adaptation you get from spending time in that zone and a specific heart rate bucket that you multiply you get your 95%. So say we take someone on 300 watts multiplied by 95, that gives us 285 watts. And then if we want to know what somebody's zone 4 is, that's like 91 to 105% of that 285 watts, and that's going to be their bucket for zone 4 adaptations. It's pretty easy once it's all set down. Now the second way to do it, if you want to get a bit more tactical and do less homework yourself, is an amazing podcast we have coming out next week or the week after with Professor Stephen Saylor, who's kind of the godfather of this idea of 80-20, where it's 80% distribution, easy training, 20% harder training. He advocates a different model where you go and get lactate testing done, which you'll get done pretty inexpensively now in any physiology lab. We can do it here in Trinity or any of the universities will do it. So you have one zone that goes up to your LT1. We call that the green zone. We have a zone in between your LT1 and your LT2.
And LT is lactate threshold.
It's the first inflection point on a lactate curve. Between LT1 and LT2 is an orange zone. Right of LT2 or over LT2 is your red zone. So he breaks it down as just having 3 real zones. Much easier to understand. Not as many club cyclists do that. Most people break it down into the zone 1, zone 2. But if you listen to that podcast, which goes in depth into zones, he'll say there's no real basis in the research to say there's a differentiator between zone 1 and zone 2. There is some people like Indigo San Milan trying to do research to differentiate zone 1 and zone 2, but it's still very weak and very early stages in that research at the moment. So yeah, you kind of get to choose. I might actually have a go at the latter this year and see if I can get a bit of benefit out of working in the
training
Stephen
that
Saylor
way.
advocated ones.
Yeah. So I think like this is such a brilliant question, because I do think a lot of people who come to cycling do just kind of go out, and we always call it headless chicken riding. They're just out there in zone 3 riding kind of hard, not pushing too hard, not going easy, not doing any major efforts. Grey zone, yeah, and really just becoming really good at riding in zone 3, but not having, you know, any.
And there is nothing wrong with riding in zone 3.
Yeah,
because you get the adaptations that are associated with riding in zone 3, but it is more of a grey zone because you don't get very good at building the base, and you don't, you know, improve mitochondrial efficiency, grow the number of mitochondria like you get riding in zone 1, zone 2, and you don't get any of the adaptations from zone 4 or zone 5.
Yeah, you
zone
don't
6.
get that top end kind of explosive power or riding really under pressure, under high intensities. So I did do a full podcast. We're on episode 1069, maybe, or 1070 at the moment. Episode 874.
Way back.
Way back. If anyone wants to go, I will link that in the show notes. It's called Demystifying Training Zones, and it's a full 25-30 minutes on, as Anthony spoke about, what benefits you're getting in each zone. So though that's zone 2, zone 1, how you're really, you know, helping your body to grow mitochondria, which is what we need, especially as you age. Before we move on from this, Anthony, do you think that you can go and do an event like Mallorca 312, and you've just gone out for the previous 6 months and done your own rolling around, thrown in a few hills? Like, is it possible, or are you just, is the day going to suck?
Roman, I'm going to date myself here, but I've been riding the bike for almost 20 years. And in that time, I've cycled through every cycling apparel brand out there. And I kept swapping out different apparel brands each season until I found Lactate. There's something really different about Lactate, and as soon as you slip into the gear, you notice it feels different, it feels better. I've had the pleasure of chatting with Janto Barker on the podcast. He's the Lactate founder, and his dedication to crafting the fastest, most refined cycling apparel out there, it's nothing short of inspiring. Janto isn't just trying to create gear. I get the feeling he's actively and obsessively trying to perfect cycling gear. Trust me, as soon as you slip on the Lactate kit, as soon as you zip up that jersey, you can feel that commitment. The proof for Lactate, it's in the pudding. This is the same kit that Jay Hindley wore when he clinched overall victory in the Giro d'Italia. There's a confidence that comes with wearing apparel that's been battle tested and podium proven in races like the Giro d'Italia. Trust me, feeling good on the bike means you're gonna perform better. If you have a second, I highly advise you to jump on over to lactate.cc and check out their amazing range of kit and experience this feeling for yourself. Oh, it definitely is possible, yeah, because especially if you're going out, a lot of people, depending on the topography of where you live, like I trained in Toronto for a long time, it's basically all flat. So if you're going out there, you're not getting a lot of exposure to zone 4 riding unless you're very motivated to push zone 4. But if you live around where we do, very close to the mountains, and you're going out with no plan, chances are you're going to be hitting zone 4 when you're starting to go up all these climbs. So unbeknownst to yourself, you're riding zone 1, zone 2 on the downhills and zone 4 on the uphills. So you're getting the adaptation from both those zones. So I think depending on where the topography is, you could fall into something mimicking a successful training plan. Definitely not optimum. And I think if you're going to invest in going to Mallorca 312, the time away from family, the time away from work, like, it's just easier to get a coach. You're going to have a much better day. The last 100k are really going to suck. And this day is not going to be enjoyable. Remember a couple of years ago, we stood on the finish line and had nachos watching people coming in on the Mallorca 312, and they were like the back markers. Some people were staggering across the line.
I know, and nobody, they're all delighted to finish, but nobody looked like they had a really happy day out. And sorry, one more thing before we move on from this. He does say at the end, I want to get faster, but also not ruin my love for training and going out and just enjoying the spin. And this is something that sometimes people do lose when they get a very focused training plan and they get a coach and they're like, okay, I got to go out, do my 5 days training or 4 days training. I have to get into this zone. I cannot go into zone 3. And it becomes science led rather than feeling led, and also can sometimes take out that little bit of enjoyment. I mean, you and I speak about the Saturday spin that we go on the group spin. A few weeks ago, I went out on it. I had to use my gravel bike. I was a few days off the bike. I wasn't having a good day at all. And you kind of said to me, why don't you just turn off early and roll on home? And I was like, well, this is my only social ride. You know, this is the part that I love because I'm with people, I'm in a group. And even though I'm suffering, I want to hang on in there and do this kind of social thing and chat to people. So that's important too.
Well, you just need a bit of EQ to not go too OCD with the zones.
Yeah.
Like, because then ultimately, if you're trying to be 100% compliant and stay in the right zone that your coach says all the time, like, you're going to isolate yourself. You're going to be training by yourself quite a bit. I think the fun gets slowly sapped out of if you do it for a long time. And like, why do we start cycling? Like, that EQ helps you to realize that there's layers to this game. No matter how serious you think it are, because you're progressing, there's someone better, there's someone better, there's someone better. You're the best rider in your country. You go to Belgium, all of a sudden you're the worst rider again. You get to the best rider there, you go to France, all of a sudden you're the worst rider again. There's layers and layers and layers to this game. So like, have a bit of humility to go out on your group ride. And if it's not perfectly in the zone that you had prescribed for the weekend, there's other benefits that you can't measure there, like, you know, skills, community, having a laugh. Why we all started cycling? Because it's fun.
Yeah, exactly. Don't forget about that piece at all. Okay, next question. Anthony, how is your sober October going? I wanted to write in because I've been doing it and honestly, I can't get over how good I feel. I'm not saying I'll be giving up the jar for good, but whoa, this has really opened my eyes to the benefits of a break from it, and that's from Sunny.
I'll be going to the piss in 6 days' time.
Oh my God, the amount of emails and DMs that I've gotten about Sober October and people who've jumped on board to do it. This is the Whoop Sober October, has been insane. People have really gone for it this year.
But you can start the month now, because if I get some Instagram and Twitter DMs saying like, oh, I kind of missed the boat on Sober October. So we have a link for just a free month on Whoop, and that's in the show notes below. I think it's like join.whoop.com/roadman, and that's below, and you just get a free month of Whoop, and you can go and try Sober October for the month for free with that. And the cool thing for me, it's just watching my heart rate variability change. It's watching my rest and heart rate change. It's watching, you know, even my energy levels, observing them change from not drinking. You have one drink prior to this, you realize how much it moves the needle on your recovery. And it's once you have that data to see actually how damaging just even one glass of wine with your dinner. Now, I know this is like the zones thing. I think you do need to balance living a bit as well, but there's a time for it. It helps you be a little bit more mindful rather than just going, oh, I'm having dinner, I'll have a glass of wine. It's like, do I really need that glass of wine? Am I going to enjoy that glass of wine? If you're going into it with your eyes open and mindful that, yes, I am going to enjoy it, it helps you enjoy it more.
Yeah. I agree. I don't really drink anyway, but this, I think when I certainly did drink back in my misspent youth, big time hardcore. For me, there's so many health benefits, and particularly in Ireland, I know we have a lot of international listeners, but in Ireland there is a big drinking culture, and it's starting to slowly change those, you know, thoughts and behaviours around alcohol, even in Ireland, which is a really good thing. For me, it's the anxiety of not waking up and just feeling like that dark cloud over me. So for my mental health, and if you feel that, that's a way that you suffer, maybe try it. Sober October coming up, especially up into Christmas, for November is also a good time to do it.
I think a lot of us are just socially conditioned to like picking something up or being out meeting a friend and having to go for a drink. But we went to the Whoop event and they served non-alcoholic cocktails.
Yeah.
And it was actually class.
They were so nice.
Yeah, no, I had a sugar high, which is probably worse than the alcohol for me the next day. I was absolutely stuck to the road. But that's a different problem. Tackle one problem at a time.
Okay, next question. Hi, Anthony. I have a question around endurance cycling and weight loss. Like many, I juggle a job and family life, and at 53, I found myself getting into audax endurance riding over the last few years. I've completed numerous events from 200 kilometers up to 400 kilometers, and back in August I had my first did not finish when I attempted a 1,000 kilometer event. Whoa. Basically I bailed at around 650 kilometers, physically and mentally shot. The main difficulty that I have is my weight. I'm a big guy at around 102 kilograms. The reality is I should be at least 10 kilograms less. Training and getting the miles in isn't much of an issue. If anything, I possibly do too much to compensate for my poor diet and the additional calorie intake. I have to admit that discipline with food is an issue. Generally on an evening when I'm back in the fridge at 9 a.m. scoffing an additional 500 calories.
9 p.m.
Oh, 9 p.m. Sorry. Scoffing an additional 500 calories, and then he has a smiley face. We've all done it. Would a dedicated training plan work with a personal trainer? That person in the background, motivating from both a training and diet perspective. Many thanks, John.
Roadman, I know how serious you take your goal setting, whether they're fitness or life-related goals. If you're looking for a powerful ally to support you on this journey, look no further than Huel. Huel has become my secret weapon for when I don't have time to prepare a balanced meal. It ensures I get the nutrition I need without sacrificing time or taste. Plus, it stops me from reaching for that takeaway menu. I always throw a bottle into my backpack when I'm heading into the city to work, and it stops me eating junk convenience foods, snacking on croissants and bars of chocolate, because I know they don't support my training goals. It's a handy, nutritious meal on the go, and it's got over 22 grams of protein. Huel is perfect for athletes that don't have time to cook or prepare food before a training session. It's convenient, nutritious fuel at your fingertips, ensuring you hit your daily fueling needs for that session. Huel Ready to Drink has 26 essential vitamins and minerals in every single bottle. You're getting a whopping 175 health benefits. Plus, it's made from natural ingredients like tapioca, sunflower seed, coconut, and more. The best part is the flavors. There's 8 crazy, beautiful flavors. Iced coffee is what's in my backpack right at the moment. You can get Huel directly to your home. All you got to do is head on over to the Huel website, huel.com/roadman. I know you've some thoughts on this as well. I think trainers, coaches are great for accountability, but I do think the motivation needs to be internal as opposed to external for that stuff. Like, is the solution just in his answer here? Like, he's nailing 500 excess calories in the evening for no reason.
Not 500, and he's saying 500. It's probably not. It's probably more like 8 or 9.
Huge surplus to be running a day.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
you're going to put on a pound a week, essentially, if you're on a surplus of 500 calories a day. Okay, first of all, John, congratulations on getting 650 kilometers into a race. I mean, that's big. And I know you're probably disappointed that you had to DNF, but that's a huge accomplishment and just something that you can build upon. So chapeau to you. The Audax scene is crazy, isn't it?
I think that word's nearly gone. Like,
yeah, I think
because it's just, these are so common now. Audax seemed like something extreme, but everyone's doing these.
Yeah, I think it's
BC epics. They're 1,000 kilometers. And
yeah, to me, Audax just is like a sportive multiplied by 5 in the distance.
Because you're going to do Badlands hopefully this September, and is that an Audax at 780k? It's not really. It's just an event. Yeah,
it's an event. But it feels to me that Audax endurance riders don't sleep whatsoever, and even your really casual riders go and try and attempt it all in one with no sleep. So there's loads of different skills and fueling, and it's all a science to do these Audax. So okay, so I think the weight thing is probably a big thing. We get a lot of questions in around weight, and that's the problem with cycling, is that unless you're at a certain weight, it is a big hindrance to be carrying an extra 10 kilograms. It is going to slow you down. And if you're going to the fridge every evening, you're feeling hungry, or maybe you're just bored, you really do have to look at, the habits that you formed around food. The biggest thing for me, I mean, I worked with a nutritionist, Yuri, for about 4 months this year, which was an absolute eye-opener.
That's a great start, that podcast that I had with Yuri Carlson,
and I'll
talking
link it
about
up.
Diet.
That was amazing, because a lot of us are actually going around completely under-fueled. So our body, we're not feeding ourselves. Our body is kind of freaking out and saying, oh my God, I don't know when I'm going to get food again.
Can I jump in there? Because I think you're right, but with a caveat, because I think he's already run the 500 calorie surplus in the evening.
Yeah, but maybe he's not, because he's not fueling himself on breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah, that's going to be my point. We're under-fueled and then over-fueled simultaneously. Like, he doesn't need 500 calories going to bed. If you think about putting petrol in your car, you're putting petrol in your car and then you're stopped. Like, you need to put petrol in your car when the car is about to be in motion. So he's probably just eating at the wrong times.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think that what I found as well from working with the nutritionist is that, so I was a devil for skipping breakfast, skipping lunch, and I'd actually almost be like, you know, do this as a badge of honor. Be like, oh, I got to 3 p.m. and I haven't eaten yet.
But is it a punishment because you overate the night before and then you try and get in the circle to play catch up?
Yeah, some of that. And because your body is constantly hungry and it's doing without nutrients that it needs, you're just reaching for stuff that's not good for you. So ever since I started eating breakfast, who'd have thought that breakfast that has been around for eons and, you know, people have sworn by forever, it actually works. So, okay, here's some actual tips. So upping your protein, eating balanced meals where you're getting all of your vegetables, all of your nutrients will, I promise you, stop you from craving bad food constantly. So if you're feeding your body correctly, you will stop craving the absolute shite that you're reaching for when you go into the fridge. I promise you. Yeah, you found that.
I would echo most of that. I think having 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. So for him, 110 or whatever he is, 100 kilograms. Yeah. So 100 grams of protein per day. That's quite hard to get. So you need to be mindful of that, having that hydrating, because a lot of time when we're dehydrated, it's sending us a signal as if we're hungry when we're in fact just dehydrated. Eating on a consistent, regular schedule, not skipping meals. I think the personal trainer, look, you're going to slightly boost your metabolism if you have higher percentage of muscle than fat, but you're never going to out-train. You're still trying to out-train. You're trying to add a different type of training. You're already saying you're doing extra miles to compensate for your poor discipline in the kitchen. Now you're trying to add strength training to further compensate for your poor discipline in the kitchen. You're never going to out-train a bad diet.
Unfortunately, you just have to, John, get really strict with your calorie intake. And I think what works for me, again, I get this a lot in the comments when I talk about it, is tracking your calories. I use an app called MyFitnessPal, and I track every single thing that I eat. Have a big focus, as Anthony says, on your hydration. Have a massive focus on your sleep, because if you're not well rested, that's going to just have a knock-on effect, especially onto your diet. Identify whatever triggers are causing you. So you're a late night snacker, you like those midnight
but that was me
snacks. Yeah.
Like, and when I started fueling properly throughout the day, the cravings I literally would never have a cup of tea without a biscuit or a bar. And then once you start fueling properly during the day, and especially fueling properly on rides, because it seems like here, when you're trying to lose weight, one of the places you're going to go back is eat less on the bike. But you need to be eating 40 to 100 grams of carbohydrates, depending on the intensity, maybe even a little bit higher per hour on the bike. That's a lot of eating. But that means when you come home from the ride, you're actually not as hungry as you would be.
So therefore you're not
binging. Not binging in the evenings.
Yeah. The other thing I will say as well that helps me is weighing. You know, you'll find out your own cadence with it. Weighing every day when you're trying to be strict at the beginning works for me. And then there's also a lot of online groups. So if you want a bit of accountability, there's loads of online groups you can go, and everyone weighs in on the same day and puts in their weigh, you know, get that kind of little bit of support. But the very best to look, I would also say that 10 kilograms does seem like a lot of weight to you. Don't starve yourself. Try and do this quite slowly and you will get there. And the very best of luck, John. Please write in a few months and let us know how you're getting on with that. This podcast is sponsored by Whoop. It's the world's most advanced health and fitness wearable. Whoop is the only wearable that actively coaches you towards your goals, and it shows you the impact that certain behaviours and habits have on your health. And right now is a great time to get started with Whoop, because they've just kicked off their Sober October challenge. So why not give your body and mind a little bit of a reset with a 1 month break from alcohol? Sounds tough, but I can tell you it's not. Last year, Whoop members who spent 1 month alcohol-free experienced loads of improvements to their sleep, resting heart rate, variability, and loads more.
And I think the thing with that is you don't need to get started with your 1 month challenge on October 1st. It could be October 31st that you get started on your 1 month challenge. For me, like if anyone's listened to the podcast, I had a wipeout on the mountain bike about 5 weeks ago. Tore my rotator cuff, broke a bunch of ribs, and went into a little bit of self-destruct mode where I started out having like a glass of wine a night, and then I was like, oh sure, I'm not training tomorrow, I'll have 2 glasses of wine, I'll have 3 glasses of wine, I may as well finish the bottle. And it's like, what am I doing here? But when the Sober October thing came along, I thought it was an interesting chance to compare data from my Whoop in the period where I was feeling sorry for myself, in the period alcohol free, and I'm actually shocked at the difference it makes. Even 1 glass of wine, the difference it makes to my heart rate variability, my restorative sleep. And then anecdotally, if you tie that data to how you feel the next day, it's insane. So if anyone hasn't experimented with this, I think you're drastically going to cut your alcohol consumption all year if you observe this data. Like, Whoop have been good enough to give us a bunch of free months to hand out to listeners of the podcast so they can try this. So the link is going to be in the description below. I highly encourage you to go and try this and try drinking. Great excuse to drink. Try drink for a while. Then use your Whoop to observe the effects on heart rate variability, sleep, rest and heart rate when you're drinking and you're not drinking. So if you want to get that free month, it's join.whoop.com/roadman, and it's going to be in the description below. Try it and let me know how you get on.
Okay, next question. So on a recent group ride, I nearly took out half the peloton because someone up front forgot to signal a stop. After my mini heart attack, I realised not everyone knows basic group ride etiquette. How do you remind people to signal or ride predictably without sounding like the group ride police? Also, what are some underrated etiquette tips that can help us avoid more near collisions and keep things smooth and drama free? And that's from Ryan.
Ryan and me are from different schools. Like, you don't signal stops. Like, people have eyes. There's no visually impaired people in your group, I assume. Like, you don't signal stops. Like, you signal stops by just stopping, and the person in front goes, oh, he stopped, I should stop too. Like, I like a very quiet group. If you come out in the Roadman group, no one shouting whole, left, right, surface, stopping, slowing, all the other crazy shouts you hear, because so many of those shouts are like, you hear whole, it's like, where's the hole? Like, who needs to hear this information? Someone on the front left is shouting hole. Does the person on the back right need to panic and swerve? So oftentimes shouts like that are stopping. They cause more drama and confusion within the group and increase the chances of an accident rather than decrease the chances of an accident. So we run the group very, very quiet with hand signals. If there's a hole, you're pointing the hole to the person behind you that needs to see the hole is pointed, and then there's a trust that he'll pass that down the line if someone else needs to see the hole. It's a subtle,
it's not taking your hands off the handlebars, it's literally a flick of your fingers out from your handlebars, and people are watching out for that. It's very, very subtle.
If somebody's standing as well, I think is an underrated one. If you're about to stand and you're riding pretty close, which you should be, somebody's going to be close to touch tight to your wheel behind, your bike is naturally going to go back a little bit, just giving a little signal behind your back that you're about to stand so they can ease off a bit to create a bit of space so they don't go into the back yet.
I don't know how this has happened.
Underrated one. Every group though shouts stopping.
They forgot to signal a stop.
That happens in every group. You only ride with the Roadman group. Yeah. People shout stopping, slowing all the time.
Yeah, no, I've been in that as well, but also it kind of, you know, I always say to newbies in particular, Ryan, I don't know how experienced you are, but really don't zone out when you're in a group ride. You have a responsibility to yourself and all the riders around you. You should really be able to spot if somebody, exactly like you said,
I think it's the culture in the group though, because if the culture in the group is, we always tell people when we're about to come to a stop, now it can start to kind of zone out because I don't need to watch for someone coming to a stop. Like, you need to be watching ahead, not watching the ground. Like, you're constantly scanning for, you know, is the corner especially if you're doing speed, you know, you could be on a slight downhill, 1% downhill with a tailwind. The group's doing 50k an hour and it's winding through a valley. Like, how do you know if the next winding is coming left or it's coming right? You need to look ahead at the group and watch which way the group is starting to snake so you can make those adjustments. So you need to constantly be looking ahead and scanning. So you should know if the front riders are stopping. But also you can see visually it, you know, cascading back the chain of riders that somebody's stopping. So yeah, I'm not a fan of those shouts. It's like the only information that needs to be communicated in the group is information that people can action. Other than that, it's like useless information and it causes chaos, it causes panic. Like shouts of hole, where's the hole? How deep is the hole? Like, am I meant to judge the depth of the hole by the pitch of your shout? Like, it becomes ridiculous. It's like hole left, hole right is fine.
We passed a group a few weeks ago and they were coming towards us on the other side of the road. Now the road had 2 lanes in it with a very distinct, plenty of room. And there was a car behind us and they were shouting car up, as in a car coming towards them, even though there was 2 lanes of traffic. It seemed very stressful and crazy to me. And I thank God for our nice, quiet group, but we have our own way of communicating. Ryan, sorry, I hope that has helped, but you've written into the wrong podcast if you thought Anthony was going to back you up on shouting about potholes there. Okay, next question. Sarah, I've been following you on Twitter and know you've been off the bike with saddle sores the last week or so. This is something I too have to deal with occasionally. I heard pros sometimes adjust your saddle tilt mid-ride or swap chamois thickness depending on the effort. Is there any truth to that? Are there other advanced tweaks I can make to stay comfortable during those hard sessions without constantly dealing with saddle sores?
I've never heard anyone adjusting their saddle tilt during a session.
Sounds very problematic. Do you know what's happened to me last week with my saddle sores, and it was bad. I had to get an antibiotic. I've been dealing with them. I've been off the bike. I've been running instead of going out on my training rides. What I've noticed is when you're on the saddle and you've got a saddle sore, you're overcompensating and you're putting pressure on other parts of the contact point to try and alleviate the pressure on the part where the saddle sore is, which actually for me, I came out from a ride last week and I was like, Anthony, my back's hurting me, my shoulders hurting me, my left leg is numb, my right hand is numb, my foot is numb, all these things that never happen because I'm moving around on the saddle.
I'm getting that with my ribs as well because I'm trying to compensate.
Yeah.
So when I hit a pothole, my broken ribs aren't hurting, and now I'm finding my lower back is starting to hurt on the bike when it never normally hurts. You're tensing in different ways.
So I think getting off the bike mid-ride, tilting your saddle, for me is like a really bad idea. I just think it's going to cause...
Different chamois thickness? No, I've never heard of that either.
I think that...
Actually, Jer texted me a chamois cream. One of the lads in the Roman group texted me a product that Assos make for chamois creams.
He swears by this. I have it on order and I can't wait to get it.
It is called Assos Skin Repair Gel. And I couldn't tell you how much it is, but it just comes in a tube.
900 million euro if it's from Assos.
But I think the main things are like the obvious things. Like if you have a saddle sore, stop riding. Don't keep aggravating it. Wait till it heals. If it's bad, go to the doctor, get an antibiotic. But prevention is the main thing.
Exactly.
It's like making sure you're not going from bike to bike with different saddles, different setups, wearing clean shorts, getting out of your kit as soon as you finish, and actually washing yourself properly.
You calling me dirty?
No, I'm not leveling that accusation at you, but washing yourself properly with like an antibacterial soap.
There is also a case though, and I think that this is what happened to me, is that I've been upping my training so much that I think it's just time in the saddle. I'm pretty fastidious about how clean my kit is and how clean I am. So I would like that stated on the record.
Sure.
I think that's it for today. I think that's all the questions done today.
I think that's it, folks. That's a wrap. Roman, thank you for tuning in. There's another podcast up here which you should definitely check out. Sarah's gonna link stuff down below, like that Yuri Carlson interview we talked about, which is definitely worth checking out. And then do subscribe to the channel because we have some gold in the pipeline that'll be coming out between here and the new year. Talk soon.